been on the interwebs over the past few days, if you haven't been on the interwebs, Twitter or whatever, this list has been going around, and you just put whatever player fits into these categories for each team. No, it's all-time Mavs, but really it's like last 20 or so years. I mean, 2000s onwards. Was I'll post a slightly biased game breakdown later today. Oh, God. But this is interesting to me, because there's a few answers. It's interesting to see where everybody's at just in their timelines. A lot of recency bias and something like this. Now, I have some answers in my brain. Of course, there's great players in the 80s, great players in the 90s. Not so much for the Mavericks because they weren't very good, but there were some good players. I'm mainly going to go from like the 2000s onward, pretty much the Dirk era onwards, just because, you know, that's where my brain is. That's where my brain's at with this. Now, there's probably a better way we could do this. Could we throw this into Photoshop and do our own? That way we can keep up with it. Yes, obviously you have guys like Mark Aguirre, Rondo Blackman, obviously, but I'm just going from the Dirk era onwards because I'm just going to be real. I didn't watch those guys, okay? I didn't watch those players. And that's that. There's no point in lying. There's no point in lying or hiding or trying to be something that I'm not. And I know I'm seems like I'm stretching this out, but my dumbass opened up Premiere Pro instead of Photoshop. So let's just start immediately with most underrated. On the All Things Mavs one, Josh Howard. Pretty good pick. You know, Josh Howard was a good player, made the All-Star team with the Mavs. I don't know if he ever reached 20 points per game with the Mavs, but he was at like 19.9 points per game one year or something like that. So we can just round up. Literally 19.9 one season with the Mavericks. This is a pretty good selection. Did get some Defensive Player of the Year votes, some Most Improved Player of the Year votes. Obviously, Marquise Daniels is an interesting pick as well. That's somebody that doesn't really pop into the brain. Josh Howard, you know, dealt with injuries and stuff, and that was sort of had a shorter career. Marquise Daniels, 3 years with the Mavericks, but, you know, has a special place in my heart. I absolutely adored him and loved him. I think there's some like Michael Finley, for example, for me, is interesting. I think everybody knows Michael Finley. Everybody, you know, loves Michael Finley, obviously. He's in the front office now. Everybody knows Michael Finley was good. I don't think people realize how good Michael Finley was. Like, Michael Finley got MVP votes 3 separate times with the Mavericks. Not like Defensive Player of the Years or also like MVP votes. Finley was really like that, man. Led the league in minutes 3 times. Unfortunately, was not with the Mavericks the year that they made the NBA Finals. He went to the San Antonio Spurs. That was a bit of a tough blow. But he's definitely up there. But you want to know? Do you want to know who I think I'm going to go with here for most underrated? And this is just how my brain feels on the matter. No, not the custodian. Brandon Wright. Brandon motherfucking Wright. Now, before you say, what the hell? See, like, Matrix, really? Brandon Wright, not a super long career. Was a part of the Rajon Rondo trade, but was really damn good. Advanced stats, absolutely loved him. He was, by some advanced metrics, the best player on the Mavericks pretty much every single year. Great rim runner. And would have been so good next to Luka. Like, that's just what my brain feels like. He would have been so good playing alongside Luka Doncic. I love me some Brandon Wright. Was very sad to see him go And his career just sort of fizzled out. I guess not really. He played, yeah, I do remember his time with Memphis. Was a guy who was always injured. I mean, look at the games played. Constantly injured. But I liked him, man. He was fun to watch. Top 50 dunks with the Dallas Mavericks. Whatever you do, do it right. Harbor Freight. Dwight before Dwight. Yeah. Oh, wow. This is an emotional video. Okay. I don't think we can have that. Wow, why is this so emotional? Hey! Hey! Was he on the shut it down, let's go home dunk? Was that a Brandon Wright dunk? The infamous Dirk Nowitzki. Shut it down! Let's go home! Wait, was that Chandler Parsons throwing a lob to... Wait, when did Brandon Wright get traded? It was during the Rondo. Chandler Parsons' time with the Mavericks just doesn't make sense in my brain. It's just like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense that was 2014. That feels so much more recent than that. So much more recent. All right, so Brandon Wright to me is the most underrated. Here, can we just remove the background on this? Just make it look a little bit better on Photoshop. Thank you. Thank you. Most overrated. All right, now here's where we get some juicy stuff, okay? Here's where we get some juicy stuff. So the All Things Mavs one, the community said Kristaps Porzingis. Now, in my brain, this can't be KP. Okay? This cannot be Kristaps. Overrated by who? Mavs fans absolutely hated him. In fact, so much so that I would actually say that when he was on the floor, it was a little bit underrated, just amongst Mavs fan circles. The problem, of course, was that he was never on the court, and a lot of the times when he was on the court, he was working his way back from an injury or dealing with some lingering injury. It was not media and other fans saw him as the help Luka needed. Yeah, I guess, but I don't think anybody overrates KP. Now, I have some recency bias. Underrated and overrated is hard to look back on players. How can Tim Hardaway Jr. be overrated? Like, overrated can't be somebody who's constantly shit on. Dorian? It's not Dorian. It's not Deshaun Stevenson. So, it's not Christian Wood. He was not very well received here. So, the answer I kept coming back to, not that he was overrated. In fact, during a lot of this time with the Mavericks, he was probably a little bit underrated. Definitely not OJ Mayo. I could see an argument for Monte, but I'm not going to go that route. I feel like since the departure of this guy, the way that we look back at his time is not correct. And I think that it's Brunson, I think. Because, again, while he was on the team, he was underrated. But since his departure and since his, comeuppance on the New York Knicks, I feel like people just kind of assume that's who Jalen Brunson was the entire time as a Maverick. And that's just not the case, man. That's just not the case. But I think most people understand. Wait, what the hell? Why is that so big? I think most people understand the KP stuff. And I think most people understand that he was just never healthy when he was on the team. Whereas Brunson, people just kind of assume Brunson was like this the entire time with the Mavericks and that he was always going to turn into this. Not true at all. Okay? Of course, Brunson had the incredible series against the Utah Jazz. Of course, Brunson had that second half of the season, really, his final year at the Mavericks, the 2022 season, where it was kind of obvious he was blossoming into something great. But he was never going to be the off guard that Luka needed. Just full stop. He was never going to be that. Okay? That's why even last year, even before the finals run, I was saying Kyrie makes more sense next to Luka than Brunson ever did. Because Brunson just wasn't the off guard that Kyrie was. That Kyrie is currently. Right? He couldn't really play off ball. He had to be an on ball guy. He goes to New York. He's one of the highest usage players in the league. That's what he needed to do to spread his wings and fly. And I feel like everyone looks back at it. I mean, it's still a thing. They were talking about it. Tim McMahon was talking about it on some podcast a week ago. It's like it worked out, man. It did. The Mavericks are in a better situation now with Kyrie Irving. It makes more sense basketball-wise. It just does. It just does. Brunson has good spot-up shooting numbers now, but that was never the case with the Mavericks. Never the case. And he was great in that Jazz series, but his playoff performance really sort of went downhill after that. The last two series, he was okay against the Suns. He was not good against the Warriors. Of course, the Mavericks don't make the conference finals run without Brunson, so I'm not trying to poo-poo that, really. And Brunson was awesome. Brunson was awesome with the Mavericks. I absolutely loved him. But I just feel like his time with the Mavs has been a little bit overrated, to be honest with you. And let's not forget, the year prior to the conference finals run, the Mavericks probably win that series against the Clippers, that 7-game series against the Clippers, if Brunson's anything other than horrendous. He did. He got benched for Trey Burke. That happened. So I'm going overrated with Brunson. Best is quite easily Dirk Nowitzki. I mean, do we even need to get into that? Josh Green, like, you guys are talking about players who, like, got shitted on all the time. Like, Josh Green can't be overrated. Like, he just can't be. No, I'm sorry. Dirk is the best. That really close right now. Okay. Dirk has a ring. Dirk has an MVP. It's Dirk Nowitzki. Shut it down. Let's go home. Okay, boom. Who's most underrated? That's Brandon Wright. I love him. All right. So at the worst, they went with Rajon Rondo. That's a fair pick. That's a fair pick. Now, I will say the Rondo stuff went downhill quickly, and I think it was Rondo and Rick butting heads in the way in which they did. I think Lamar Odom has a very solid case because he was actually horrendous. Like, Rondo was pretty bad, but he still had moments. Odom was absolutely terrible with the Mavericks. Like, genuinely a horrible basketball player while he was with the Dallas Mavericks. I also want to say Derek Fisher was genuinely an awful basketball player in his short time with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, granted, it was only 9 games, but he was absolutely awful. Overrated's always going to be hard. Like, who's actually overrated? KP cannot be the overrated choice. Like, people shit it all over him. No, Chandler Parsons. Chandler Parsons, what? Overrated or worst? For me, it's between Fisher and Odom. My God, Odom was so bad. I kind of think it's Lamar Odom, actually. It's not Grant Williams, man. You guys don't remember how fucking bad Lamar Odom was. Like, it was bad. He was much better than Grant Williams. Bad, bad, bad. Derek Fisher, too, was bad, bad, bad. But Odom was really bad. Funniest. So Boban wins this, and Boban's a great dude, funny dude. Is Boban really the funniest, though? Like, is Boban really the funniest? Now, my vote is for Deshaun Stevenson, who was just a riot. Was just an absolute riot. Wore a shirt that said, "Hey, LeBron, how's my Dirk taste?" I believe owns an ATM category, or an ATM in his house, I believe. An ATM machine in his own house. Has a Abraham Lincoln tattoo on his throat. There is an argument for Luka, 100%. There definitely is an argument for Luka. But I think I'm rocking with Deshaun Stevenson. I feel like he's perfect. And it gives us an opportunity to give Deshaun Stevenson some love. It gives us an opportunity to throw some love to Deshaun Stevenson. The defense he played in that series against LeBron. The three-point shooting. The shit-talking. The, "Hey, LeBron, how's my Dirk taste?" shirt. Again, the Abraham Lincoln tattoo on the throat. Incredible. Most annoying. So Grant Williams wins this. This is recency bias, man. I guess he was a little bit annoying, but come on, really? The most annoying? Tim Hardaway Jr., no. I have an easy one for this. And I'm viewing the most annoying as the player I like the least. And if you've watched me for a while, you know who this is right now. Off the rip. This was the only player while he was actively on the Dallas Mavericks that I genuinely did not like at all. Like, I genuinely did not like him and had a legitimate hard time even rooting for him, to the point where if he did something bad, I was like, oh, God. I've seen some be Tim Hardaway Sr. had a very short stint with the Mavericks. Obviously, this is because of stuff that he said after the fact. Luka having an argument for most annoying? It's not Christian Wood, believe it or not. I have said that this is the only player that I've actively not liked while he was on the Mavericks. Wow, I'm surprised none of you know. Now, you're going to notice that I have a early 2010s bias towards this, early to mid 2010s bias, although this might have been late 2010s, late-ish 2010s. Zaza Pachulia, man. I can't stand him. Just think he's one of the dirtiest players we've had in recent years. And I really struggled to root for anything he did while he was on the team. He tried to rip Kawhi Leonard's arm off while a member of the Dallas Maverick. I couldn't stand him when he went to the Warriors afterwards and he did the stupid-ass fucking horse riding celebration that just made me want to... I was seeing red. I'm sorry. I could not stand Zaza. Couldn't stand him. He does have a classic clip, though, from the early in his career with the Hawks. We go into a Game 7, baby! Game 7! Dirty player. That's it. Very dirty player. Most potential. So we've reached the end here. Everybody in the replies to most potential is saying Derek Lively. D-Live, D-Live, D-Live. Are we fucking joking? I don't think people understand the purpose of this exercise. You guys know that I love Derek Lively, but, hello? Are we serious? I don't think people understand the point of this exercise. It's most potential. We're talking about franchise, and of course, we're not really doing franchise history because we're doing the last 20 years, 25 years, but Derek Lively, and I love him, and he does have a ton of potential, does not have anywhere near the amount of potential of Luka. Okay. Most wasted potential. So here's the thing with the Mavs is like, really for the last 20, really since they drafted Dirk, a couple years for Dirk to get acclimated to the NBA, but after that, the Mavericks like never were in any real position to draft highly in the draft. Of course, Roddy Beaubois is going to come to mind here. Although, you know, I'll fight back against this a tiny bit. I'll fight back against Roddy Beaubois here. Because he was a 25th overall pick. And yes, he had quite a bit of potential and upside, and there was a lot of hype. But, I mean, again, he was a 25th overall pick. Is this all time? It would be Tarpley if the 80s are included. Roy Tarpley. Roy Tarpley, 7th overall pick. Played a handful of seasons. Won 6th Man of the Year his second year in the league at 23 years old. And was suspended for 5 years because of substance abuse. This one should be KP. KP's an interesting one. Is that a waste of potential, though? Are you going based off accolade-wise? No, I'm most potential. So what I'm meaning by this is who came into the Mavericks organization with the most potential? A young Luka Doncic had more potential than any other player the Mavericks have ever had on their team. Period. And it's not close. I mean, Tarpley was supposed to be awesome and then got banned. Tarpley's actually a pretty good shout. Do we put Roy Tarpley on here just so we can go back in time and have like a player from the 80s? Because it is like Roddy Beaubois. Okay. Rodman was washed. KP's not a bad answer. Dennis Smith Jr. was always a risk. Like that was a risk when he was drafted. Jay Crowder? Jay Crowder was a good role player here. That's all he was really going to be. That's a nice flex. We'll go Roy Tarpley. Rest in peace. Justin Anderson? Like Justin Anderson was what was he, like the 15th, 16th overall pick? That's not a bust. This is a good pool. It's a good pool because he looked good, 6th Man of the Year, second year in the league, top 7 pick, and just out of the league. Best passer, all right. This is easily Luka Doncic. I know, Steve Nash. Don't care. This is Luka Doncic. Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I mean, look at the point guards the Mavs have had in the last like 25 years. Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, and Luka Doncic. Now, Kidd and Nash probably definitely didn't reach their highest points of their career with the Mavericks. But that's like a crazy group of point guards. And it's funny, too, because Kidd on the Suns after the Mavericks, Steve Nash to the Suns after the Mavericks. Who knows what's in Luka's future? In my brain, I'm thinking best passer is different than playmaker. Like Steve Nash was a great playmaker and a great passer too, but Kidd's passing bag just feels deeper in my brain. But maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. Luka has one of the deepest passing bags in the history of the sport. Okay, full stop. Best perimeter defender. I thought Deshaun Stevenson has an interesting claim to this. Now, I'm personally leading Sean Marion. I'm leaning Sean Marion, who did get Defensive Player of the Year votes while with the Dallas Mavericks. But Deshaun Stevenson was a demon. He 100% was. JJ Barea against LeBron. See, like Dorian Finney-Smith, Derrick Jones Jr., all great, but these are all obviously very, very much recency biased. I don't think they hold a candle really to Sean Marion, who absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame. And I know I say that, and then people will be like, "Well, you said Drew Holiday shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame." Like people say this. When the Drew Holiday argument was happening, people were saying, well, Sean Marion should be in it. Sean Marion was better at his peak than Drew Holiday was. Full stop. Okay. And then not that close either, really. So I don't think they're comparable. Best rim defender. I think this pretty much has to... I know, I tried to get a more recent picture, but this is the only one they had. This pretty much has to be Tyson Chandler, I think, by default. Of course, he was the center when the team won the championship. Like, it almost has to be him. Now, the thing is he was only here for 2 years. So, I guess you could maybe make an argument that it should be somebody else. How about, Sean Bradley? Sean Bradley had seasons of 3 blocks a game, 2.8 blocks per game. I think there's an argument that it could have been Sean Bradley. But we'll give it to Tyson Chandler. The ring talks. I wish these headshots were like. It sucks that it's the most recent headshot of them, so it's Tyson Chandler with the Rockets. Most athletic. So the Mavs, at least in recent history, haven't been like an uber athletic team. I think Dennis Smith Jr. pound for pound is the answer. That's like that was his draft claim to fame was his absurd athleticism. Derrick Jones Jr., yeah, I think it's Dennis Smith Jr. though. Yeah, the athleticism from a guard. You guys really think Derrick Jones Jr. for sure? No, not Josh Green. Josh Green's a good athlete, but I don't think he's at the level of Derrick Jones Jr. or Dennis Smith Jr. Well, Derrick Jones Jr., Luka, Gerald Green. That's a nice pool. How many games did Gerald Green play for the Mavericks? Gerald Green was an NBA 2K legend. 38 games for the Mavericks. Honest to God, in 2008, 2009, I have zero recollection of this at all. I have no recollection whatsoever. of Gerald Green's time. Gerald Green, honest to God, is an interesting one. Because Gerald Green, I think, is one of the best athletes in the history of the sport. Like, if we just looked up highest vertical in NBA history, I think Gerald Green's probably high up there. Let's see. Michael Jordan has the highest vertical ever. Do we believe on that? Do we believe that? Vince Carter was a fossil with the Mavs, man. It can't be him. Gerald Green was 23 years old when he was with the Mavericks. Richard Jefferson was also too old. Gerald Green might jump higher than anyone else ever. My God. It's not AJ Lawson, no. Yeah, I think it has to be a fan favorite. Because if we're going Gerald Green, if we're digging deep and pulling Gerald Green out, who played 38 total games with the Mavs, I'm sure that you could make arguments for like two-way G League guys who are just there for athletes, who are there because they're athletes. I'm a little bit surprised you guys think Derrick Jones Jr. is a better athlete than Dennis Smith Jr. I don't think I agree. If we're going pound for pound, Dennis Smith Jr.'s explosiveness at his size is insane. And he honestly should have won the dunk contest. That was a robbery. I know Derrick Jones Jr. won a dunk contest. I agree. It's got to be Dennis Smith Jr. He's 6'1", man. It's also a good excuse for us to get Dennis Smith Jr. on this list. How do we feel still about the Brunson overrated shout? Overrated is so hard. It really is. If we're actually going with overrated. Best handles? I mean, this is quite easily Kyrie Irving. Next question. Kyrie Irving. Irving. This one's easy. I mean, Kyrie made it easy for us. Kyrie made it nice and easy. Best shooter. So I'm telling you right now where my brain's going, and that's Luka. But it's funny. I was thinking Luka, and then I was like, wait a second. It's fucking Dirk. Like, what the hell? What are we even talking about? Like, oh, hello. It's Dirk. Best in post is Dirk. Best role player. Peja just wasn't with the Mavs very long. I mean, he was awesome during that run. But how many games total did Peja even play with the Mavs? 25 total games in the regular season before that playoff run started. And he shot 37% from three in that postseason. Felt better. Jason Terry. Well, what constitutes as a role player? No, Luka has an argument for best shooter, but let's not forget if we're doing the whole Luka creates all of his shots, I'm counting the Dirk fadeaways, I'm counting the Dirk middies, like those all count as shooting to me as well. Role player equals not perennial all-star. Jet's a great one. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm like kind of thinking Sean Marion again. Josh Howard actually, if you're going the all-star route, Josh Howard did make an all-star game with the Mavs. But it does feel kind of dirty if you do a whole list like this and Jet's not on it. Especially if you're doing the... Especially if you're doing the... Like, mainly we're going 2010s onward. Or 2020s onward. Or 2000s onward. What the fuck am I saying? Jet had... here's Jason Terry's 6th Man of the Year finishes. I could have sworn Jason Terry made an all-star team with the Hawks. I don't know why I thought that. Sixth Man of the Year, third place finish in 2007, 2008, 08, 09. Won Sixth Man of the Year, averaging 19.6 points per game. Shooting 36% from three on 6.2 attempts. At the time, that's kind of crazy. Sixth Man of the Year, second place. The following season, second place, third place. And during that finals run for the Mavericks, 32 minutes per game, shot 44% from three. During that finals run, 17.5 points per game. Incredible. It's got to be Jet. It has to be Jet. Can I find a headshot of Jason Terry on the fucking Mavericks? Thank you. Got a tattoo of the Larry O'Brien trophy before the 2010-2011 season started. I mean, just an all-time great. All right, so let's go over this. Most underrated, Brandon Wright. This is just a personal shout for me. There could be a million different answers. The choice here from the Mavs community on Twitter was Josh Howard, which is a pretty decent selection. Although, again, I would say most Mavs fans know how good Josh Howard was. Now, I'm interested to see like what all the comments were saying. Overrated. Who are we saying? Rondo, Parsons? How are these guys over? Who's overrating Rajon Rondo? Rondo most overrated. Do these people not know what overrated means? Zach Randolph. Chandler Parsons. Jaden Hardy, like who's overrating Jaden Hardy? Some people for sure, but if you're going most overpaid, most underrated is Marquise Daniels. Hey! Yeah! I kind of want to put, you want to know something? All right. Who the fuck's overrating Marquise Daniels? Some people think Hardy will replace Kyrie. No serious person's thinking that, though. Like, that's what you have to factor in. No serious person believes that. It's Brunson. It has become Brunson over time. It has become Brunson over time. Hardy could replace Kai. Okay, guys. Maybe Hardy is most overrated, honestly. Maybe it is Hardy. What are you guys talking about? Hardy could replace Kyrie Irving. There's no way anybody in this community believes that. And I love the kid. But there's no way anybody actually believes that. Not in this community. Hardy party.